Thank you. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. Are you guys good?
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. How's everyone tonight? Happy 11/11. Thanks to coming to my cozy living room and sharing 11/11 with me. I was supposed to go to a place where we would actually start at 11 o'clock so that we'd be 11/11 at 11. But when we pulled up the chart, there's actually no place that's 4 hours ahead of us, unless we're just landing in the middle of the ocean. Just fun fact. I thought you guys would really like to know that. So it didn't work out. We'll have to just kind of stay an extra couple of hours and we'll ring in 11 o'clock together here, 11/11. I have, since I started this, I've tried to give some kind of a seminar or some kind of presentation every year on 11/11. And I think I've only missed 1 year. So I'm happy to be able to be back this year and to get that done. So welcome, everybody. Welcome to November of 2019. This is the 11th of our Making Discovery Building Blocks. It's mind-blowing when you think back to how many months in this year are already gone and how few are left. The thing that makes it a little bit easier for me, having had time go so fast this year, is that I have always felt since 2019, since 2018, huh?
I thought I liked the dark.
Yeah.
Is that better? It's Striker is calling and he's saying that it's too dark.
Oh, okay. I think that one, yes. When that one went off, it got worse. If you could switch these two, that would be great. You know what I mean? Okay.
Tell me when.
I'll pause for a second.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
That's better. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. All right. Anyway, in 2018, for some reason, I was always shown from guides that this is just a segue year. It almost feels like a bridge year. And because the energy that's coming in from 2020 on is so profoundly different, this is just a year of preparation, which is why I decided to do Making Discoveries, the building blocks for us to be prepared for when 2020 comes in to begin with. Exactly that, because this is that bridge year. And what we are going to be experiencing from 2020 and beyond, it's virtually unstoppable. There's nothing that we could do about that change and that shift, the change and the shift that's been coming in so much already anyway. But what we want to do with these building blocks is we want ourselves to be prepared so that we don't feel like we're getting tossed around in a major tidal wave when it hits. We want to be the ones that are surfing it by choice, taking that wave exactly where we want to take it, when we want to take it, and how we want to take it. So we're the ones that are going to be on the top that are floating. Other people who are less aware, less inclined to understand the vibration of what's happening on our planet, less inclined to want to experience their own enlightenment, their own awakening, their own awareness. Those are the people who will be in the tumble of the wave rather than skimming the surface of the wave and taking it all the way into the shoreline that they choose, not some kind of random place where they land, but where they land where they want to go and they want to be. And that's the point. The point of this is when we look back at all of the building blocks of this year, the 12 building blocks, we want to use them as a review and establish our confidence that these are things that we understand or have mastered or are attempting to grow our, nice shirt. Cheers. It's basically to life, cheers, celebration in every language that I've ever seen. I like that. That's very cool. So that's not at all distracting, not in the least. But welcome to my living room, random person. At the end of this year, anyone that attended the Making Discoveries at least one point throughout this year, I'm going to be sending out a list of everything that we looked at for the year, so that when you're entering into the new space and you're contemplating what you want your life to be like in 2020, doesn't mean setting a New Year's resolution, but it's saying, how do I want to advance? How do I want to improve? What do I want to experience? How do I want to feel? When you're doing that, you're going through that contemplative process that we usually do year end, you'll have a list and just kind of go through that list and say, you know what, I want to work a little bit more on May's topic. I want to work a little bit more on September's. Nailed it for April. I really got that thing done for January. But then just keep it there as a little crib sheet, little cliff notes for you for next year. So that as you see shifts in the way that they are affecting the human reality next year, rather than feeling any kind of confusion or fear, you'll feel an understanding and a comprehension of what you want to keep your sights on and be aligned with those principles as you move forward, okay? With any change in energy, there is no beginning date and ending date. Everything is about, it manifests and it grows and it grows and it grows and it grows, and then it hits a pinnacle. But we don't know, you know, exactly when that peak will be. Will it be January 17th? Yeah, because that's when we'll be in Grenada. Yeah. Okay, so we don't know exactly when that pinnacle will hit, but we know that we're heading toward that moment. But the moment that it hits in the fullness and the richness of what we're going to experience, that's a game changer for humanity, which is one of the reasons why I am spending this year as a bridge year to get us from all of the discoveries that we've made over the last decade, of the last decades even, and allow ourselves to be prepared and to be in alignment with that energy as it comes in, okay? It's interesting because even though we might not be able to necessarily quantify what this is going to look like, I have a lot of information about how the world will change. And it might be over a 10-year period, it might be over a 20-year period. But come 2020, the world as we know it will change. And we can meet that change with optimism and with freedom and with joy and with love and with a wonderful empowered belief that finally we're here, finally we're here. And that helps you to experience the changes that are going on around us without having that resistance that makes something a little bit more painful or harder to accept or harder to be a part of, but to put the resistance aside and say, it might be different, but I understand it. That might be interestingly fast or quick the way it's happening, but it's okay because I really understand it. And just to try to show you what this means in practical terms, the incoming energy, you've already seen changes on Earth that you might not have been able to predict 5 or 10 years ago. And one of them would just be if you look at how different the retail industry is right now. Think about that. Even in the last 5 years, even the last 3 years, you know, retail stores are shutting down. People that are staying in business are learning how to reimagine their presence, reimagine their brand, reimagine the way that we shop and the way that they deliver goods and services and products to us. And those who have some alignment with, I'm going to say probably intuition. You might think it takes a lot of good business acumen to be able to be ahead of the curve when such a rapid change is coming forth. But business acumen really is, it's intuition. It's intuition that's applied in commerce instead of necessarily in a different matter of the heart or a matter of something different. And those are the ones that will continue to thrive as they have the ability to intuit on how to be ahead of the curve of what changes are coming our way. And that's just retail. I mean, you could go on your phone right now and you could get your food delivered to your house tomorrow. You could go pick out your groceries while you're sitting here in this room. It's that remarkable. You know, I get a kick out of, we went to Iceland and I'm like, you know what, maybe I'll just use my online account and just get the stuff that we need delivered to the place that we're staying for a week. But that's pretty much what it's going to be like. So instead of paying baggage fees, it'll be like, you know, dear Alexa, could you get my, here's the address. I need my brand of shampoo. I want my razor and anything else you could think of that I really need. Just get it there. And this is the date I need it by. That's what we'll do. And we'll have it all there. And by the way, I'm walking into the house at 7:07. I would like the temperature at such and such. A nice hot bath would be pretty cool. You know, I really don't like lavender on the water, but let's try a little peppermint oil today. I'm feeling energized. And that's what we'll do, you know? So we might as well get used to it. But that's just the external stuff. A lot of the external will change, but the only thing that makes external change disconcerting and unsettling is if you're afraid of it or if you resist it. If you're not afraid of it and you don't resist it, then it's not scary and you get to be on the fun end of it. You get to say, how cool is that? That's really amazing, absolutely amazing. And when you're confident with yourself and you have really advanced your own relationship with the building blocks that we've been talking about all year, you will have the confidence to say, how cool is that? Because you're going to be happy with yourself. Outside change will unearth you if you're not feeling comfortable with who you are, not only in this earth life, but in the scheme of things. What am I doing here, and what is the purpose of all of us being here? So many people on this planet are attached to the way things were. And especially if people have seen things be the same for multiple decades. Then when you start to change things that we have thought we could depend on or trust just in the day-to-day experiences and how we live, how we connect, how we eat, how we experience our entertainment, how we experience our interactions. If that changes and you're not comfortable with who you are in your life and your purpose, it's going to make you feel uncomfortable when all of that change happens outside of you. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can almost imagine if you think back a few decades ago and you knew an older person, you can remember like when something happened and changed, how unsettling it was for them. And that thing that changed seemed so tiny to us, right? It seemed so small to us, but to them, it was a big deal. And they would say, you know, even if you go back to going from radio to television or black and white to color and talkies instead of silent movies, you know, you could see when you look through history all the resistance that there is to these changes. Whether you resist them or not, the changes are coming. So why not be really incredibly comfortable with your life, with life itself, with your being, with your purpose? If you're comfortable with all of that, then you won't necessarily have to be attached to the way things happen and unfold in the exterior world. See a lot of nodding. I think everybody understands that this makes sense. Although I'm going to put my foot down about one thing, okay? If you don't mind, resistance. The thing where you use your key in the car and start it without like using it in an ignition. I'm sorry, that's just not working for me. That is like a disaster waiting to happen. That is a disaster waiting to happen. That and the removal of the headphone jack in the, I don't mind saying the name, in the iPhone products and the Apple products, the removal of the jack, that's not working. So excuse me, 2020 and beyond, we need you to pull back on those changes. You can go ahead with the rest, but those two are not working at any level. Not working. Okay, I am not qualified to have a key to a car that I don't need to use in the ignition. I am not qualified, okay? And there's a lot of people on this planet that are not qualified, okay? Oh, all right, I said it.
Just ask Alexa.
Yeah.
I bought one of those cars, a Mazda.
Yeah.
They gave me the keys. I got in and going, how do I start this?
Yeah. Yeah. I can even work through the how do I stop. I can work through the how do I start this. What I can't work through is finding the key the next time it's in my pocketbook or my grocery bag or my pants pockets or wherever I threw it in the car when I started the car. The funniest thing to think about is when someone comes and drops the car off and it's running and somebody else gets in and says, all right, I'll see you later. Okay, bye.
Turn it off.
Love you. 300 miles later, stops at a little gas station to grab a bite and realizes they're never going to start that car again because the key is with the person who said, bye-bye, love you. Okay, so not all change is easy. I admit it. I furiously admit it. Although, you know what this looks like, right? We're just going to say, we're going to name our own whatever the device is, and we're going to say mine's going to be Jupiter. So Jupiter, I want to leave at 11:11, bring my car out front. And then my car will be there. Oh, sorry, could you fuel it up? But don't be late. I still want you there at 11:11.
This is crazy, Karen. Today I was reading an article on AI, on artificial intelligence, and this is exactly what they were saying.
Oh, come on.
I swear.
Wow.
That is the thing to invest in, is the technology of AI.
Yeah, and it really
exactly
is.
What you're saying, so.
Yeah, and I get it, and we'll figure it all out. So, no matter what, whatever device I have to talk to, I would really like it to have a British accent. As long as it has a British accent, then male's good for me. For me, I'm kind of happy with that. That works for me. And then we can hang, and then I can get this whole thing working. Anyway, I really went into a different direction than I had intended. Okay, so anyway, so we will have, of course, a new building block for today. I haven't downloaded what that building block might be yet. And I think I would like to just very, very quickly read. I'm only going to read them and not build upon them, what the building blocks have been up until this point, just so we can review them really quickly. Change is possible was for the month of January. February, we were working on the word soft, which is also the word for the entire year, a softer approach, a softer way of thinking about things. March is about having warmth in our interactions, more eye contact, more hugs, more touch, more ability to connect with one another. The number 4 was that the basis of every disharmony on the planet is fear, which is actually pretty much how I started tonight, speaking about that change is not inherently bad, except for the Apple product change, but change is resisted because we're afraid of what the change. I'm not afraid of not having a jack on my phone. I just don't like it, and it's stupid. Okay, definitely not afraid of it. So what the heck? For the month of May, we had the theme of knowing and remembering that we are eternal. I will always say, when anybody asks me of all of the aha moments I've experienced since this part of my journey, what was the most important in significantly changing the course of my life for the better? I'm going to say May was it. We are eternal by far. That was the one that completely pivoted my resistance and my lack of understanding or enjoying or even prospering in life as it is today. June was about remembering to get fired up about your life. Get fired up about your life. We can all see that this goes very, very quickly. It's important that we stay invested with zest. Stay invested with zest while we're here. The 7th one is that this one is really one of my personal favorites, and I remember even channeling it back in July, and it is one of my favorites, but it is basically, there's nothing wrong with you. Stop letting people tell you there's something wrong with you, and stop thinking that you have to be better, look smarter, dress differently, be thinner, have a different color hair, or have done something differently. There is nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. Okay. August was find out what you're made of. That means that it's a little different than get fired up about your life. Getting fired up is being happy and having some passion and some zest. But finding out what you're made of means explore your own courage. Go a little extra, do a little 10% more than you might have done. Okay. Whether it's talking to a stranger or asking for a raise or leaving a paycheck job to do something entrepreneurial, but you can do it. It's only in your mind that you think you can, but just go with those extra steps, even if it's one small step at a time, but find out what you're made out of. Honestly, find out what you're made out of. September was accept that you are not your body. Okay. And that helps you to live as if you are unlimited. But it also, for me, what it did was it softened my relationship with my body. And it made us not at odds with each other, but it made us have a better comprehension about being one. The reason I'm talking a little bit more from August on is because we've gone over the first 6 or 7 months of the year often, but the last few we haven't even reviewed. And it's not my call, it's your guide's call. So even though I said we weren't going to do it, it's not up to me, it's up to them. So, but what the whole idea is that I know when I had body disharmony, I would see my body as being separate from me, and that would create tension. That would create a feeling of that you're not agreeing with me. You're not doing what I need you to do. You've abandoned me. And now I feel like you're in charge and I'm not in charge anymore. But when you start to realize that we're not our bodies, you get to understand that this is a harmonious partner in this journey that can support you, and you allow it to support you again, and it doesn't have to be disharmonious anymore. And that's how I have lived, but I put a lot of intention to living like that. So I went from having a lot of illnesses and body disharmony to having no illness and no body disharmony.
Yeah.
Maybe 5 or 10 minutes here or there, or one a little day where it's raining outside and you just want to tuck in, but nothing. I just don't even get sick anymore. It just doesn't happen. October was about surrendering. That's such a tricky thing to understand. There's a balance between creating something with our mind's eye and our vision and our imagination, and then letting it go and letting it have its own world out there. If you have ever done anything where you created something, especially I think it's easy to see with a child or with a business or with redecorating a house from top to bottom. But when you start something, it kind of feels like it's your baby, it's your baby, it's your baby. But you have to eventually just let it go and have its own energetic journey. Totally true with kids. If you don't do that, you're really going to F them up. But it's also true with a business, and it's true with other things that we create, that after you see it become something material, something tangible, you have to let it go. You have to let it go have its life. You have to understand that you don't own it, that it might be a part of you, an expression of you, and something that you created, something that you gave birth to, but then let it go. And I don't mean this in a way of like if somebody creates a masterful painting and somebody wants to pay them for it. That's not at all what I mean. But if you suppose you sell your painting and you get $10,000 for it, what the hell? Suppose you get $100,000 for it, right? And you happen to know the address of the person that purchased it. You made this $100,000. Are you going to then go like sit across the street with binoculars all the time and checking out your painting, make sure it's happy and being treated right? Part of the idea of creating and giving birth to something is to let it go and have its own journey. You made $1 million for it. All right, you made $1 million for it.
I might do that.
Huh?
I might do that.
It's so tempting. It's very, very tempting to hold on to that which it is we create. But in the flow of things, everything that is created on this planet is interactive, and we're always building upon what other people have built and what other people have designed and what other people have crafted and what other people have imagined. I like the analogy always, and I use it because it helps to remember this process. But when a new masterful building is built in Manhattan, on the cornerstone, when that is dedicated, it's not going to be the architect's name that goes into the side of the cornerstone, because even though she might have been the one that took all of the pieces together for 80 years worth of progress, 200 years worth of progress, she just was the one that pulled it all together. She wasn't the one that actually created the vision of this. Someone else figured out the wiring, someone else figured out the steel, someone else figured out the lighting, someone else figured out the engineering, someone else figured out all of this stuff long before that building got to be 80 floors high as a possibility for you. And that's the way it is with whatever we're doing, no matter what it is we're doing. We may have thoughts that we believe are original. We may have original ways of putting things together and to seeing them, but we're always building on the vibration of others' achievements and others' creations, which is really a beautiful thing, right? It's a very beautiful thing. I don't know about you guys, but I'm always excited by new art. It's not that I don't appreciate art that I've seen already, but when somebody puts a new slant on something, I get very, very, very excited. To me, that's a form of genius I just don't have. So I have such an unlimited amount of appreciation for someone that has that. I see it a lot on our Piece It Together page. People put in their different art in different ways that can anyone think of one from Piece It Together, like an artist, the way they do something different? Oh, I know one. A man took little pieces of litter and kind of glued it all together, just litter. And then when you pull back from it, it was like this gorgeous three-dimensional bird with like iridescent wings. You guys remember that one? I love those posts and Piece It Together when you get to see how that imagination works. So that brings us to the month of November already, but those are the 10 building blocks before today. When you look at those building blocks, going back to what we talked about earlier tonight, is you can see how every one of them is actually incredibly beneficial for us to know and to realize and to do our best to align with as we're moving into the energy of 2020. There's not one thing in there that you would say, it's really unnecessary as a piece of being able to have the happiest life possible on this planet. It's just not. Every one of those is necessary to have it pieced together in this puzzle of life to allow us to have our happiest journey with ourselves and with others. Okay, so let's see. What is, I just got the one for November, and I'm kind of listening because I think it would be good for December, but I'm not the chooser, so I can't, say, all right, hold on, could we just it's not up to me. So now, hey, they're going to have to work. You guys are going to have to work harder to come up with whatever the building block is for December, because I thought they nailed it now, but they didn't. Anyway, this one is about, it really is that everything is connected. That's the building block. And I have to tell you, I had a really busy day today. Once in a while, I'll get a quick sneak preview of what the building block is. And when I walk in here at night, I feel a little bit better because I don't feel naked. But when I come here and they've given me nothing, it's always a relief when somebody shows up and says, everything is connected. So that is the building block for the month. And it's a good one. It's a very good one, because one of the things that helps us to be miserable is a sense of separation. And if you really, 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 really want to maximize your feeling of misery, just continue to feel like you are completely separate and that this is completely alone and not at all connected to anything or anybody, tangible or intangible. It's a scary feeling. It's a lonely feeling. It not only manifests itself in oftentimes feelings of tremendous body disharmony, but it can also manifest itself in a lack of physical abundance, a lack of meaningful and mutually beneficial relationships. A feeling of being isolated or separate is one of the primary causes of all disharmonies on the earth. And if you think about it, let's just take a peek at any big prevalent disharmony, and we can follow it back to the core of the belief that we are separate. So let's just take war. War? Okay. War is a great example of what happens when we don't understand that everything is connected, because we're fighting about something, whether it's a resource, a concept, a religion, skin color, but what we're fighting is the idea that you are different than me, and there's some level of scarcity because you have something that I want, even if it's a belief of your own superiority or my belief in my superiority. But if everything is connected, if you really truly remember that everything is connected, you don't actually have the capability of participating on any level in war. You don't. You don't have the capability. If you really know it that fully, if you really recall it that fully, you cannot participate in war. It just doesn't, it doesn't have any, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't jive. It's its own oxymoron. You know, it makes absolutely no sense. And that's in the most profound way. Like we might think, well, what if it were my family, or what if it were my home, or what if it were this or that? I don't know. If you, you know, sometimes when we play what if, you know, sometimes the kids will say, what if this? And it's the most catastrophic thing that could happen, you know, the apocalypse or whatever. I'm at the point where, you know what, if people are going to act savagely toward one another for the last asparagus spear on the planet, I just want to go home. Count me out, okay? Just count me out. That's not what we're here to do. We're not here to act as if we're separate. We're not here to pretend that my actions don't have a consequence back to me ultimately. And when we live as though we know that everything is connected, we also live in a state of honor. And when you live in a state of honor, you no longer are doing the things that are harmful to one another. And you oftentimes stop doing things that are harmful to yourself as well. Yeah.
Is it possible that, let's say, doing small things out of your own irritation can attract significantly larger amounts of bad karma?
The question is, if you're doing small things out of irritation,
not meaning to,
and can it attract in larger
larger
issues? It doesn't, and you say, yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about, was that you used the word karma. Let's get an insight into that. Karma has a bad rap, all right? Karma has it's kind of, we have done this. We have embedded it with an idea of punishment, okay? We have made it out to be something where no matter what you do, it's going to come back and hit you really badly. Right. But imagine like someone did something that was really rash or foolish and somebody was harmed, right? And they knew all the rash and foolish things that they had done their whole life up until that moment when it caused harm to another person. If at that moment there was an enormous awakening and a sense of self and a sense of remorse or compassion, or a feeling of, I have seen things in a limited, not helpful and self-destructive way my entire life because of the way that I have suffered my entire life. If that shift happens, do you think now that the harm you just brought to that person is going to come and hit you on the other side? It just doesn't work like that. What we're really designed to do is we're designed to awaken. The only reason we can actually cause harm to ourselves or others, I'm going to pause for a second. The only reason that we could ever cause harm to ourselves or others is if harm had been caused to us. So we have learned to separate from the fact that we are worthy, that we have the birthright to be valued and appreciated and treated kindly and with respect and without any abuse or neglect. Follow? You cannot harm another if you have never been harmed. So karma, we look at it as like, if I do something bad to someone, something bad is going to happen to me. But if you have that aha moment and you wake up and you understand not only how that moment happened for you, but all the moments that happened to you, actually with you, but all the moments that happened before, there's no negative consequence that's going to come to you. There's only going to be positive consequence that comes to you, right? I think that's a very, very, very important note. There's some things that we do on earth that seem a little nonsensical, but if you think about it, they actually have a core of value in them. And one of the odd things that you see once in a while, like on TV or something, is in a drama show, you might see like the judge when, or let's go to the male. I used the female already, so we'll use the male. If he's about to sentence a person who has been convicted of a crime, one of the things that he will seek is a sense of remorse. Not the words, not the statement read, but he wants to see it in the person's eyes. He wants to feel it in their vibration, right? The reason is because then the whole magic of the dominoes falling to this moment, it did what it was supposed to do. So there's no real, I'm going to go one step farther, there's no reason to punish someone when all of the dominoes fell and got to the moment of enlightenment, right? There is no punishment. There's no need to punish. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Now, as far as small annoyances, if they can amass into something bigger outside of you, what it comes from is here's an interesting way of looking at it. When I talk about how a person who is not loving themselves at all and has been very much separated from the vibration of self-love in childhood because of, mistreatment, when that person experiences a lot of challenges as an adult, it depends on the person what kind of challenges they're going to experience, okay? And everything is possible. So one person is going to experience a duplication of an exact echo of what they had happen to them when they were young. Another person is going to have all body disharmony. The next one's going to have all physical things, breaking a machinery, bricks falling on their head, falling down a staircase, all that. Another person is going to have never having any money, having money stolen, having money burned, having money not available, not getting a paycheck, not being honored. And then there's going to be someone that has body disharmony, the brick falls on their head, and their partner steals all their money. So there's no way of knowing exactly how it's going to come back and show itself that we have separated from our infinite wisdom. But the way that it is delivered to us is going to be an expression of how the guides in the universe understand would provide the greatest package for us to be able to have the possibility of a wake-up moment from that challenge. So some people, the guides are like, all right, we'll try this, we'll try this, we'll try this. And there's an innate sense that this is going to be the modality that causes the shift. But another person, the guides are going to be like, well, let's do this, and now let's change it up, and we'll do this. Let's change it up and do this. Let's change it up and do this. And it's because they can sense within the person's thinking and believing and their actions and their feelings that the first opportunity for discovery couldn't penetrate the walls that they have established based on the pain that they have experienced. So whatever we're having things that are challenging or increasingly challenging outside of us, they're not distinctly a measure of what we've put out into the universe. They're more of an expression of what's going on inside of us. Okay? So being annoyed and being irritated, it doesn't mean that you're gonna, walk into a well. It means that those irritations, that kind of sense of unrest, that feeling of having a rub with a lot of different things that are happening, those little annoyances are really just an expression of the disempowerment that you have felt. So you want to be in the driver's seat of certain things as you become an adult, because you want to feel like you can take back your power. A lot of people try to take their power back by trying to control the world around them, right? Isn't that why we really are a bunch of control freaks? I mean, honestly, we try to control everything, right? It's funny because when I was driving here today and I saw all the signs up of winter storms, right? I'm like, oh, for goodness sake. I wouldn't mind a massive power outage so we could just get back to let's start from the beginning and let's just build slowly with a windmill or two because we're out of control.
Yeah.
We are out of control. Tomorrow night is the only night this week I don't have a seminar. And, luckily I don't have to deal with it because if not, I'd go home tonight and everybody would have canceled. Because someone put up on the expressway tonight, winter storm tomorrow night. We need to control everything, right? Last year, we have this thing in my town, Safe Halloween. The high school opens up. So many of the high school students, they dress up in costumes. They take all the classrooms and they have a theme in the classrooms where they decorate it with, I don't know, this one's Dracula, this one's Peanuts and the Great Pumpkin, and this one's this, and it's a lovely day, and the kids come around and they come in full costume and they go from classroom to classroom to classroom and they trick or treat, right? I took my kids there all the time when they were little. We also went trick or treating besides that, but we did that, and the kids really liked it, and it was interesting because it also made them feel comfortable. By the time they got to be in high school, they were already pretty familiar with the building and already perceived it as a friendly, welcoming place, right? So last year, the Safe Halloween was on a Saturday. It's always on a Saturday. Thursday, we're having a nor'easter on Saturday. Okay, so now Friday rolls around and people are canceling stuff. It's a big nor'easter. We're going to have this, and everyone's got the Weather Channel on, and they're texting each other, and their phones are going off with these alerts, and all this madness is happening. And so they canceled Safe Halloween. Okay, so what happened that day? Nothing. We had some rain. We had a little bit of wind, but it was a lovely day to take your kids in trick-or-treating inside. Do you follow me? So it's all about a matter of what it is that we're doing. What is it that we're expressing from inside of us that we are not aware that we are experiencing it? It is that simple. So we don't have to control everything, and we don't have to worry about having mild irritations or even big irritations sometimes. Did you ever, here's an interesting thing to think about. Since we've set the spiritual bar so high for ourselves, I'm going to lower it for us. Are we all on? Raise your hand if you would like me to lower the spiritual bar. Anyone? Lower the spiritual bar. Okay, so we're gonna lower the spiritual bar. Did you ever hear something unkind come out of your mouth and wonder who said it, or do something a little unkind and be like, that was really out of character? And then when you go to try to clean up the mess you just made, you realize, oh my, that was really beneficial, right? Did that ever happen to you? That you say something and then it turns out that it happened to something bumped into that thing that you did out of character, and they went, and then they turned direction and something got better because of it. Does everybody know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's
all right.
rare
Yeah.
that it happens.
Maybe we don't see the result.
So the point is, why are we so damn hard on ourselves all the time? Sometimes you're allowed to be in a bad mood. You're allowed to be annoyed. You're allowed to be a little bit irritated by stuff. You're allowed to cry that your washing machine overflowed and ruined the flooring. You're allowed. We don't have to be above human, but it's just a matter of how long will you stay in that vibration? Are you managing it in proportion to what actually happened, or are you managing it in a way or not managing it, but whatever your reaction is, it's out of proportion to what the real experience is, right? I was going to say something else. Anyone have a question? Because I lost my train. Thoughts? Anything? We're good? Good. Oh, okay. Now we do. We'll go. Yeah.
Sorry, Karen.
Go ahead.
I was just thinking in terms of, like, let's say something came out that was empowering for you to acknowledge that you've been sort of watching,
And all of a sudden, like, the way I felt, I'm going to say, because it wasn't me.
Friend of a friend,
like this friend,
a friend of a friend.
Ask you for a
So
friend.
anyway, so, yeah, this friend of mine. So I felt finally, I think, empowered to say, that's not okay. Instead of sitting back and watching the escape happen as it has been happening for 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's a part of me that felt very genuine in the way I addressed it, like very authentic, I should say. And I was even surprised myself the way I authentically put it out there. And yet there's a part of me, and this may be from my experience of not good enough growing up, that still has to be worked on, but you know, I'm a progress, not perfection. But I don't know whether it was me making a bigger deal or me empowering myself and saying, I'm okay with that. That was my authentic self.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I think I understand. What her question is I'm going to try to put it in simpler terms, but basically that you kind of stood up for something that somebody was doing that you had not said anything about for a really long time. And you're wondering, should I have done that? Or should I just have continued to be quiet? Right. My view about that is that certainly every situation is different. I know that if a person is incredibly harmed and disempowered, one of the ways that they can get their strength back or their sense of self or their sense of even visibility is they go through a phase of, I found my voice, right? And we all know what that looks like. Excuse me, but you cut. You know, I was online first. Go behind me. You know that whole finding your voice thing that some people go through. But that finding your voice thing is incredibly essential for some people. It might come across as, if you're the recipient of it, you'd be like, well, I really didn't know, but it's all right. I'll stand back here. But you don't realize that this person is actually trying to get back into feeling like they're worthy and feeling like they're visible and feeling like they matter. But after that phase of finding your voice, then when you get to a new level of awareness, you feel so much more peace that other people's journey and the way that they behave doesn't seem to affect you as negatively in the future. It's more about an observation. You might observe their behaviors and almost get a sense of where they're living within the enlightenment journey. And you might prefer to behave differently or prefer to be treated differently. But in the scheme of things, you're not going to lose any sleep over it. So you just kind of let it slide. And even if you are in that mode where you can let almost everything slide, there are going to be moments when something does matter and it is worth standing up for, whatever it is. For me personally, if it was an unfair treatment to an animal or a child or someone that didn't have the ability to stand up for themselves, that's a no-brainer. But sometimes you're the one that you have to stand up for. You're the one that in a similar kind of vibrational experience, nobody stood up for you. And it does feel like it's changing almost your conversation with the whole universe, that I do matter and I am visible and I am significant. But there are always ways to do that where you are able to make yourself known in a different way or allow someone to understand your preference in a different way. There's always a way to do it with kindness. I really do have a very firm belief of that. Aside from that thing where I said where you behave out of character and you almost feel like you were not the one, you didn't pre-think that, and it wasn't like an angry reaction. It was just like, I can't believe that I just said that, and that was really out of character for me. Aside from those moments, we really do have a lot of ability to just be kind and understand that virtually everything that we would want to say or have someone recognize about their treatment of us or something that they're doing or some kind of behavior or some kind of choice, we can always say it kindly. We really can. Okay. And if it is about a behavior, I do think it's more helpful to turn it back on me. And truthfully, what you're calling them out on is the way they're making you feel, right? But who's really making you feel like that is you. Even if the behavior is not aligned with the vibration of love, you are still the one that's choosing to behave, to react in a way that's disharmonious to whatever it is that happened. Okay. And so I think that it's okay to say, I don't know, but that makes me feel uncomfortable, or that's something that I never really liked. Okay. I'll give you a tiny example of something like this. And this is tiny, trust me, in the scheme of things where I've come from. You know, my youngest child's name is Brett. And my dad, when my son was really little, I would hear him call him Brat instead of Brett. Well, I had zero power in my life at that point, but I'll be damn sure he was never going to call my son Brat again. And that was a worthy thing to stand up, and I was unequivocal that he was not going to do that again, even though I probably never stood up for anything in my life. You follow me? So it's a matter of, well, what is this triggering from your body of history? Obviously, just from that little story, you can imagine some of the stuff it triggered from my body of history, but that was a moment that there was no decision to be made. I wasn't going to lose a night of sleep over it. I wasn't going to find my courage. I wasn't going to find my voice. Boom. It was right there, right then. So you have to sense that our history is so specific to our own journey. There's not always a very easy explanation for why some things are more difficult for us, or why some things are thematically challenging to us, or that's the thing that irritates us. If we were in a room and we had 100 people wandering around and having a cocktail party, and I put 10 people in that would do things that were in general possibly irritating, right? Probably only one or two of them you would even notice. If we sat and this was a social experiment, and at the end of the 2 hours, I said, can you tell me anything that you found irritating? Don't talk about who it was, but what did you find irritating tonight? I guarantee you're not going to find 10 things, because we're going to attune to that which it is that is bringing forth the history of our personal experiences.
That's a really good analogy.
Thank you.
That really is.
Did I ever tell you that I love you? Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, but it's a helpful way to really understand it. Yeah.
How many more times do we need to celebrate Veterans Day?
How many more times? I think that it's until a full generation of people have no ancestors that they remember that have fought in war. That's how long we'll celebrate it. You know, and even then, it probably would be a good idea to honor it so we can look back on the planet that we never want to create again, right?
Then it becomes a different celebration.
Yeah, it becomes a celebration of look how far we've come, right? That would be a cool
the most
thing.
difficult, challenging time today. One of my future son-in-laws is an ex-Marine, and I said, "How do we acknowledge a day? We don't say Happy Veterans Day. We don't use the word happy to be the prefix. What do we say to it?"
I think what I like that we do say collectively is thank you for your service. Yeah. That's been a way to have a common conversation about something that we actually really do respect. We respect the men and women. We don't respect the men and women who put them there, but we do respect the men and women who have served. Wherever that whatever helped them to make that decision in the moment. It was a well contemplated decision in their life, and they did seriously do something that was courageous. So thank you for your service is something that I think really works very, very beautifully. And that's how we feel. I had this thought in the beginning of the year when, I always get these kind of downloady kind of things, but it occurred to me that actually it was last year, a lot of the disharmony that we have about our country is that we have put the American flag in with military service and in with patriotism. So we've taken kind of contrasting themes and we've kind of melded them together. So even if you don't necessarily value some of the direction that our country is going, or if you don't value the way politics plays out, or you don't value the lack of liberty that really exists here, you still have such an appreciation for everybody who has served our country, because whatever was going on in that moment, it was a very, very selfless act of courage. But by using the same flag for both, we're really muddying the waters, and we're kind of saying that we're agreeing to something that we don't really agree to. Right? It's a little bit like making your 3-year-old's birthday cake with, spinach and arugula flour and expecting this to be, a happy birthday celebration. You just can't do it. So we did that thing with the flag, and now it's not necessarily working as well as it did at one point in history. So I always thought it would be very cool to have a military flag for all branches of military. And that would be a really fun way where we could, we could really feel celebratory of the men and women who have served without muddying up anything else that might be going on with, stand for the flag, stand for this, and all of that other politics that get in there. Now, but it's an interesting day to be here. Another interesting thing is that it's 11/11, and you look at the magic of that number. It means there's something very, very profound about this date. Very profound about this date, and I like to think that with 11/11 representing all of the infinite oneness in the universe, then the fact that Veterans Day is on 11/11, it's helping us to see that in the course of history, even though history plays out very, very slowly when something is not harmonious, but in the course of history, we are going to come back to 11/11 being everything that is harmonious. Okay? That was a good question, though. Anybody else have any other questions? We're good? Over there? You good? Never want to ignore you. Okay. All right. So I think we talked about what I already forgot what the thing is this year. Oh, no. One. We are one. I just talked about it. 11/11. Look at that. No wonder. It always hits me later. I have that revelation. Like, come on. Isn't December the season of oneness around the globe where you're supposed to be saying that everything is connected? Now I know. Oh, if only Karen were as smart as Karen's guides. But, well, that's all right. I'm just the conduit. And as long as they're doing their job, then we're really good to go. That's really funny. That's funny. That makes a lot of sense. We're here on 11/11 talking about everything being connected, right? Yeah. Okay. So just ask me another question. Nothing's coming up for me yet except that realization. Yeah.
Are we going to have time for like the hand-in questions?
Yeah. Did we pass out paper today? No, we didn't. Yeah, I meant to do that. Yeah, I'm going to pass this out, and you guys can tear it out and get it up to me. I think we're going to skip the break today because we have had a lot of unusual circumstances this evening. So we're just going to skip the break and go right through. So as soon as you hand these up to me, I will start answering them. Okay, if you want to.
Finally have a short question. I'm always the one who has like the 2-page question.
Oh, that's you.
That's
you. That's you. Yeah. I spoke at an event. Anne Marie was there. Yes. Yes. I spoke at an event on Saturday. It was the first time I spoke at this particular event, but it was a full day event, and the author from The Shack was there, and he was the keynote speaker. Anyone else there?
No, I remember seeing that, and also Deborah Silver.
Yeah, Debbie was there, and it was a really amazing day. There was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people there, and I got to. There was a pre-event, so I did get to meet the author of The Shack, Paul Young, on that night, and then I got to spend time with him on Saturday, and it was nice. It was nice to get a glimpse into a different perception about what people are thinking about and what they're focusing on right now. But one of the most remarkable observations I can make from the day is that the quality of the conversations there, coming from a lot of different things that they did during the day, I'm amazed at how far we've come on this planet. Like that day and the the quality of conversation and the way that people were talking openly with each other, it could not have happened 15 years ago. Like, the language just didn't even make sense 15 years ago. So I was really happy to see that there was so much said as though we're talking about, yeast rises bread, use some yeast. It's like, oh, okay, it's a fact. And things were said that were totally unspoken 15 years ago, and they were said as though they were just commonly known and accepted fact. And that was one of the things that I really appreciated about being a participant in such a big event with so many people there and a lot of different speakers. And that's amazing. It doesn't mean that we're finished, obviously, because even though there were hundreds of people there that day, there were a few more people that weren't there, and those are the ones that we have to continue to try to reach in any way that we can. And certainly a big part of 2020 and beyond is, how do we become minions for positive change? It's easy to say that we want to make a difference on this planet, but no matter what, it's not an easy thing to go out there and do everything that you could possibly imagine you would like to do. It takes resources, it takes courage, it takes time, it takes imagination, it takes partners, it takes players, it takes volunteers, it takes more resources. So even though we all have all these ideas of what we could do to make the planet a better place, we're only going to be able to do whatever it is we can do. Maybe we might amp it up, like I think August or September suggested that we go a little extra, but we might not be able to get as far as our imagination would like us to get. But that never, ever, ever, ever will stop any of us from being a minion for positive change in your day-to-day experiences and in your day-to-day life. Now, I have, it's a long story. I'm not going to tell you how I knew this man, but there was a man that came into my life and was in my life for probably, let's say, about 10 years. And again, it's a really long story how this man was in my life. He worked 3 days a week for the city of New York, and he picked up litter on the streets. And he put it in a trash bag, and he tied the trash bag up, and he put it where he was supposed to put at the end of his shift. And that was the entirety of his career, the entirety of his work life. Okay. Now, has anybody ever met a person that does this for a living? Okay, you have. All right.
Yeah, I'm friends with someone like that myself.
Okay, so maybe it's the same person, which would be really interesting.
Yeah, Morgan Freeman. He sounds like him too.
So
he's a garbage.
This man was never on the sanitation trucks or anything like that. He wasn't picking up the garbage and putting it in the truck. This man literally had a walking stick, and he picked it up off the streets, literally. What he did, he walked the streets of the city every 3 days a week, picking up other people's litter. That's what he did. Okay, but I think you're on to my theme. Now, again, it's not important how I know this person, but our interactions were uncommon. They were very, 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 very uncommon. And I think most people would not have necessarily been comfortable continuing a relationship because it didn't fit within the context of today's relationships or whatever we're used to on a day-to-day basis. But we grew to have, I'm going to say, a great love and a great appreciation for each other, a great love and a great appreciation for each other. And one of the only ways that he could express himself was in writing. So during the course of this 10 years, he would send me letters in addition to when we would see each other. And the letters were, I swear to you, they were written by God. Wow. I had absolutely no idea how anyone could have the wisdom that this man had, that he channeled into these pages that he would hand write out onto me. And I think he had to find the paper, honestly. I think it was pads of paper that he found when he was cleaning the streets. And I saved a lot of them. I've had hundreds and hundreds of them over that 10-year period. And what was amazing to me is that his wisdom was so profound, but his desire for what he wanted to experience in the physical world and the manifesting in the physical, it didn't even exist. He didn't have any judgment of his life. He didn't apologize. He didn't explain. He didn't even seem to consider that his job might be something that wouldn't be a typical job of a friend I might have in my life. Okay. So there was no conversation about it whatsoever. The level of modesty in which he lived his day-to-day life, again, absolutely no conversation. We never had a conversation about it. It was as though we were two of the same people. Okay. And what I came to really discover, and I'm so happy that I was open-minded enough to not fight this or resist it or control it in any way. I honestly just let it be whatever it was that I discovered that you could be a person that's picking up litter on the streets of Manhattan 3 days a week and doing nothing else, especially nothing that our culture would value as being important or significant, and you could be making such a profound difference. My feeling was every time I had lunch with him or every time I sat with him, I would feel so happy that 3 days a week he would go out into the streets of the city because other people would bump into him. And that's how I felt. I felt like, I'm sure maybe some people will think they're being generous or gracious by talking to him. Maybe some people will bump into him and be inconsiderate, but maybe later down the street, they'll turn around and look back. Maybe someone will actually talk to him. The kids will probably hug him. But no matter what it is he was doing, those 3 days a week, his essence and his being was in some way changing the world, wasn't it? Yeah, absolutely. So even though I talk a lot about how can we be increasing minions for the world we want to create and the world we want to live in, it's not a judgment. There are no right answers. There are no points where you mastered it and you've done enough, when there's no points where you've done nothing and it's not enough. Whatever you do, as long as it's aligned with the intention of love, it's enough. It's always enough. It's always enough. Right? All right, let's pass up some papers. Grab them from behind you. I have a chair right here. Yeah. 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 I can hear you thinking tonight.
Oh, that's funny.
I don't know why I can hear you think. I don't know what you're thinking, but I can hear you think. Sounds like a plane's landing on us.
It does.
Sounds like UFOs.
Okay. All right. This question is that I spoke with somebody in the room a month ago, and a rock had hit her windshield, and I explained what value it might have as a metaphor, because every challenge, no matter what it is, has value metaphorically and it has benefits enfolded into it. Okay. But one of the things that she wrote, and I can say she because I know it's a she, but one of the things she wrote is, but how is that a lesson? I want to start out with a more global answer to that for 1 second before I get specifically to the crack in the windshield. I don't use the word lesson, and I think a lot of you know that, because I think the lesson implies that you were ignorant or flawed or less than until you learned something, and now maybe you have some modicum of semblance of okayness. Right? Lesson has we've given it that implication over all these years that you got to learn your lesson, you got to learn your lesson, you got to learn your lesson. And inherently enfolded into that is the idea that until you do, you're less than. That's the reason I use the word discoveries instead. That's why this whole year is called Making Discoveries, because we're never less than. We're not flawed or stupid or ignorant or have to or should or must if we haven't opened up a discovery. The reason there's something to open is because we got separated from it in the specific course of our journey. So the universe gives you opportunities for discovering something that you forgot. It's a knock on the door. And if we're unable to have a spontaneous aha moment, or we're unable to have the discovery come through positive means, the universe is very creative, and it might come through irritants and increasing irritants in order for us to recall something. But specifically, the metaphor of that, the crack on a windshield, is simply that glass is often seen as a barrier to that which it is that we want. And when we see glass, we can see very desperately what we want in our lives, but we're on the other side of the glass, so we can't get to it. A lot of what we want in life we can't see, nor sometimes do we even know we want it, because we can't even set our sights on it because we don't even know it exists, right? But the glass separator means that I know what I want, but I've been held back from it for so long. So a shattering of glass of your windshield, since you're the driver of your car, and it's one of the fastest ways you can move forward on your journey by driving your own car, a crack on the windshield of your car means that you're shattering the invisible barrier that separates you from everything that it is that you want. Okay, so that one happens to be an incredibly positive message enfolded into it. Follow? Does that make sense?
It does. Be excited about getting a
You gotta let it happen to you, okay? Even though it happens with us and for us. We're not gonna shatter each other's windshields now.
Right.
Yeah.
What?
Even though it was a negative experience.
Yes, 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 yes. So then you want to start to look for the benefits. And the benefit of having a crack in your windshield is maybe the person who repairs it is someone that you're a minion of discovery for them. Maybe they're having a super horrible day and you just happen to tell a story that gives them a different insight into something. Maybe it's that you needed to get it fixed and it prevented you from being somewhere that would have been discordant for you when the windshield was getting repaired. We don't always know exactly what the benefits were. So even if you can't, if it's a bigger challenge, you're going to want to figure out what the benefits are. But with something a little bit smaller like that, it's okay to make the assumption that there were benefits and that there are benefits. It's always good to live in that knowledge that there are benefits, whether you're able to cull them or not. Okay. Did you happen to think of any benefit that came from it for you?
No, I'm starting to, as you're speaking.
Okay. But do you understand the process now when you're thinking it through?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good. I had, when I first experienced pulling all these masks and layers off, I had, I can't even remember now because I put it out of my head so far, but I had 2 or 3 people hit my car. So it was weird, you know, and the first time it happened, huh?
Oh,
yeah. Oh, bless you.
Thank you.
So the first time it happened, now I had, I wasn't someone who had car accidents, right? So the first time it happened, I was going straight through a green light in the right lane. And someone in the left lane, I guess I was in their way because they needed to make a quick right turn. So they just basically hit my car, took it off the road, just made the turn to turn. So I'm going to explain this to you, how this works. This is certainly bigger, was certainly bigger than a crack in the windshield. But what happened was it was a 19-year-old man. And when he got out of the car, I could sense, you can imagine if a 19-year-old person does this, you can imagine what's going on in his mind and his feelings and all this. So I could sense immediately how he was feeling. And I immediately, I was like, I'm so glad. I immediately went to, I'm so glad that he hit me and not anybody else. Because I could just imagine the wrath of someone that was not experiencing any enlightenment yet, how they might have reacted to him. And you don't really need to make the situation worse. So anyway, so at this point, I'm pretty darn intuitive. So he asked me, he knew that the consequence from his father would be so dire if he was to be told what happened, that I could tell that it would probably be brutal. So he asked me, he said he had a best friend whose father owned a auto body shop. Would it be okay if I brought it to that auto body shop, which was an understatement, inconvenient for me, if it would be okay. And I immediately said yes, because I'm intuitive enough to know that it was an okay thing to do. And I was willing to experience the consequences, however it played out. I always say eternally smart, earth-wise, which means even if you're intuitive, you do live in a body, so it's good to do smart things in the body, right? So I did say, call my cell right now from your cell, and he did, and then I knew how and where to find him if I chose to. So we were good. That was the exchange of information. And that's all I took. I did think what happens when I go home and share this with others was going to be the repercussion to me, but I'm like, that's okay, I'll deal with it. So anyway, so I find out that the boy had been in another car accident a year or two earlier. I think it was, a year earlier. And he was driving, and his best friend, his passenger, was killed in the accident. So I find this out. Now I go to the auto body shop. I'm in Queens, it wasn't a wonderful area. So I'm not good at navigating. So I had all this kind of discomfort. Am I in the right place? I didn't have safety discomfort, but I'm like, am I where I'm supposed to be? The young man was supposed to meet me there, and he wasn't there. So now I got to sort all this out on my own. Hi, I'm so-and-so, and could you fix this car for me for free? Would that be okay? So that's where I'm at. So I go to the man, and let's call the teenager Jason. So I go to the man, I'm like, Jason sent me, and you must be so-and-so. And he's like, yes. And I said, he said so many wonderful things about you. And all of a sudden it occurred to me that this was a moment that really mattered. And I could, he very, very blue collar, kind of gruff, kind of, teach people lessons, that kind of guy. And I said, all I can say is that from talking to Jason, I really have a sense that if it weren't for you, I don't know where he would be in life. I get the feeling like you are the dad that he never had. Please don't share that with anyone. But, obviously he has a dad, so please don't even ever tell anyone, especially not Jason or your son, that I'm telling you this, okay? But I really feel like you're the dad he never had. So all I can say is, like, I am so grateful for that. And, just think about more like how you can just show this kid that he matters and that he's important and that he's significant, and like have him when he's over for dinner and let him help you maybe in the garage. And he's like, oh yeah, that's the way I've always felt about Jason. I think you're right. I think I am that influence in his life. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now I will do even more. I will do more. I was like, that was it. I was done. He repaired my car for free. Eventually I drove home with it, and that was the end of the story. And one thing that was kind of funny about it was because then someone else hit me and someone else hit me. It took me 3 hits to say, all right, I'm never going to say, I'm so glad you hit me again. People, stop hitting me. Go find your own damn angel. I don't need to be everybody's angel with my car, okay? Why don't you come to an event? How about that?
Sounds like a TV show.
It was beginning to feel like a TV show. Second person that hit me helped her. It was just like, all right, that's enough. We've had. I haven't had anyone hit me since, so we're pretty good to go. But it's funny. And you see how I could have reacted to that car accident, right? Is it annoying to take your car into Queens and drop it off for a week and then go back and pick it up and have this 19-year-old, and then you have no car and you have no this, we're not going through insurance. So I'm not going to tell the kid I'm going to rent a car or anything like that. I'm not going to put that on him. And yeah, it was very, very, very inconvenient, but it made sense. It made so much sense. And I still hope to this day, even though that was probably about 10 years ago now, I still hope to this day that that young man, was profoundly influenced for the positive just because I had that 5 minutes with that man. Like, you know, it's sort of like, I don't know, I felt like I was handing a baby off to someone at a church, right? I found this baby, take the baby, please, and give it a good life. That's how it felt. It's really how it felt. Because anyway, I guess you gathered in that story that I also found out his father was pretty brutal, right? Okay. Did I answer any questions or not? I did. Oh, I did. I did yours. I did. I answered a question. Okay. Why do I always love my partners more than they love me? This is, I'm sure everybody's booting up the answer simultaneously. It's not true that you love your partners more than they love you. The reason it seems like that is because you love yourself more than they love themselves. We really are only capable of experiencing love outside with another person up to the level that we are able to love ourselves. Okay? When we grow in self-love, sometimes maybe somebody that we're with, if they're not growing in their love of self, we're going to feel the divide. And we will definitely feel like we're loving them more than they are loving us. But it's not an expression of your lovability. It's always an expression of their feeling of self-worth and the way that they love themselves. Okay? So the answer is continue to grow in your self-love and put that in writing, how valuable you are, what a great partner you are, and what a wonderful romantic partner you are. When you put that in writing, you get to help the universe magnetically draw in someone that can value and appreciate that level of what it is that you contribute to a relationship. All right. And there is no love interest that we ever have on this planet that's not eternally valuable. No matter if it lasts for a day or for a moment or for 60 years. Every time we have love interest, it has ripples of positive benefit. So don't ever disregard that for any reason. I know that I've experienced a lot of really, really hard breakups with clients, and everything from, you know, people disappearing in the night to abuse to a sudden asking for a divorce after 20 years of marriage. I mean, I've seen everything possible, everything. And the one thing that I know is sometimes a response to that is that we have to get rid of every sight or sound or expression of that person. And in the beginning, it's very cathartic to remove all evidence that that person ever existed. But what I always suggest to clients is that you tuck some stuff away, stuff that was meaningful in your relationship, because after you go through the grief and you are beginning to expand into new possibilities and new relationships, you'll always be able to look back and really honor the place that that person had in your life. And you'll be able to see the good, and you'll be able to see the positive contribution that they made for getting you to where you are today. And on a soulful level, you'll be able to see that the eternal connection between the two of you as souls was meaningful, even if the human being couldn't honor it. Okay? Something to think about. What's going to happen to those lagging behind from 2020 on? That's a really, really good question. And what we've been noting, and I've been talking about pretty openly over the last couple of years, is that it's so funny. Someone just said to me the other day that the polarization that we have in our country and on this planet right now, someone said to me that I heard it from you first. I was predicting the polarization very, very, very long time before it materialized. And even as I predicted it, I still didn't, you know, you still have that kind of like, oh, it can't be that bad. It can't be that bad. It can't be that bad. You hear the words coming through you, but you're like, it can't be that bad. Well, it is that bad. And it is going to become even more extreme. But it is, it's a very important principle of enlightenment that it is the value of negativity on earth is that we have to experience a greater perception of the negative in order to be incentivized to find the positive. So this polarization is to increase our understanding of what negativity looks like. When people are not aligning with the vibration of love, what is the consequence? And when we experience that consequence, it will incentivize everyone, those living in hate and those living in love, to want to get back to a place where we're not living in a state of pain. And that's the purpose. And 2020 is going to bring in more of that divide. At this moment in time, it can't be stopped, but we actually don't even want to stop it. It's a necessary part of our own reunification, our own enlightenment process for all of humanity. It's a very necessary step. The more we live in isolation, there are a lot of other components that are going into this, but the more we live in the absence of the vibration of love, the more important we will a lot more importantly, we will discover how important it is to align with the vibration of love. It's essential. The other thing too is that it's polarized, which means that for every bit of energy below the line, there's at least an equivalent, if not more, growing energy above the line. So part of this whole thing is how can we be minions of good? Is we just stay very, very true and connected to the principles that we believe in. Enlightenment is a one-way door. You can't become unenlightened. And as long as you stay very true in your intentions and your interactions with what it is that you have discovered or remembered, as long as you stay true, then all of those on one side of that pole, we will make a big difference to those who are on the other side of the pole. You know, if you think about what it feels like to live in ego, and this month's theme is that everything is connected. Living in ego is the epitome of living in separateness. Living in separateness is incredibly painful. It's very, 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 very painful living in the idea that we are separate. Okay? It's very painful. There's never a good, warm feeling that comes at the end of the day when you're living in ego, when you're stepping on other people, when you're abusing other people, when you're not acting in kindness, when you're not acting in love. There's never a day that you feel triumphant when you put your head on the pillow. You might feel like you had a victory, but the only thing you're really feeling is you're feeling some false sense of force to overcome all of the disempowerment you experienced when you were a kid. So it might make you feel forceful, but it's not going to make you feel powerful. Okay? So even those who appear to be unaware of the effect, don't think that they're happy, because they're really not. No matter how much they tell you they are miserable. You can see it in just this whole idea of like, I like to kind of make a joke of it, but like we're coming to the end of the world of the white man, right? Where the white man is, his day is done. And I'm going to say white man because that's whose day is done. And I make a joke about it, but honestly, it never should be done. No person's day should ever be done. It should be that anyone that's subjugating to their will anyone else should be done. But we should all live harmoniously one another. But as we are watching the fall of the quote-unquote white man right now, why is it that there's this rally of what might seem to be an ignorant regard for hate? And the reason there's an ignorant regard for hate is because there's a perception that someone's going to take something away from me. And if the only thing that you feel positive about yourself and your life and your achievements is being a white man, then you think that's the only thing you have to lose, then of course you're going to fight for maintaining whatever white man privilege has been afforded you up until this moment, right? It really makes sense. It really makes sense. Powerful people don't have to strip anything away from anybody else. People who feel good about themselves don't have to take anything away from anyone else. Huh. How do you begin to take your voice back? How do you begin to get your voice back? I've said this. I think I'm going to have to write this out in a book. But the reason we have experienced separateness on the planet is actually because of language. Language is the thing that allowed us to separate to begin with. When my consciousness visited the earliest civilizations on this planet, and I'm talking early, what I experienced is that in those groups, there was a shared consciousness among the people and the vegetation and the animal kingdom and the planet itself. So there was no language. And when I visit, it's such a nice and awesome place to be, and everybody contributes and everybody takes and everybody sings, but they sing wordlessly. But it's that kind of vibration. And what the metaphor that I use is, because this is how it was, is that if there were a peach tree and one family of 4, if 3 out of 4 people loved peaches, then that peach tree would give 3 perfect, juicy peaches to that family whenever they wanted it. That was the shared consciousness, all right? If there was, 3, the tree would produce 4, because then 1 would go to the ground for the squirrels or the whatever, and then that would get broken down to become the food for the insects, and that would become broken down to become the organic matter to feed the tree, so the tree's consciousness could give that family 3 beautiful ripe peaches whenever it wanted the following year. And this is how we lived. When we started to make sounds and we started to make repeated sounds, of course nouns would be the first thing, pa, 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 pa. Well, now all of a sudden becomes paper. So as we started to form language, we are expanding all the time as souls and as humans. Expansion is a part of the universe. It's a part of our nature. So when we started to form language and words, we became enamored with it. And like everything, we wanted to push the edge out as far as we could go until we developed a complex way to communicate with each other using only language and very little other means. As we became more accustomed to using language, what happened was, the consequence was that there's 4 ways that we can divide if we use language instead of shared consciousness, okay? Think about this. First way we can divide is that the speaker has to know what they want to communicate. To put that into words. Second way is that those words have to match the intention of what the speaker had wanted to say. The third way is that the listener has to understand the words that were said. The fourth way is that the listener has to interpret correctly the intention of the words that the speaker said. 4 ways you can miscommunicate every time you use language. 4 ways, right? And the way that is the most prevalent and the most damaging is that most people don't know what they want to say before they speak. So if you want to find your voice, one of the first things you have to do is to settle into a moment and think about, what are you trying to communicate? If you feel there's something you have to find your voice about, it means that you feel harmed or threatened or disempowered or invisible or weak or something, or overlooked. So find out what's at the thread of that feeling. Why do I have this feeling of unworthiness or disempowerment? When you find the core of where that feeling comes from, then you can start to choose what it is that you might want to communicate with someone, because now you actually know what you want. So you're not just reactive. You're not just bursting out from the body of history you've had, knocking over things. You're quietly contemplating, why do I have this feeling? What is it triggering within me? What is that threat? And when you quietly contemplate it and you can decide or sort that out, you're able to say, oh, I understand. You are making me feel the same way I felt when my sister walked in the room. It made me feel invisible because my parents gave her all the attention, right? So now you're making me feel invisible. So instead of saying it in a way that will help us to build past it, I'm going to lash out on you for every single time I felt invisible when my sister was in the room, but I'm not even aware I'm doing it. So you're going to get a lot of anger because that was a lot of times. You follow me? That's the key. So once you start the ball rolling with your contemplative thoughts about why and how do I feel disempowered, then you can find your voice. And as I said earlier, you can use kindness. So imagine you actually said a truth. Imagine you actually said why something is upsetting or why something is bothering you. Not in that whole sappy victim kind of way, but in a like real truth. I just realized that when my sister was, you just say it. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. I think I've been kind of like rude to you all these years about that one thing, but now I know why, and I think maybe we can both change it. Follow me? So now they're on your side. They actually see the point. If they don't and they don't change, why are you hanging out with them? Every person in our life that you think is there by necessity is there by choice, period. Wow, that was a good sentence.
Yeah.
Someone write that down for me. But it was a good sentence, right? Everybody that you think is there by necessity is there by choice, period. It's your choice. They're in your life. If you're interacting with them, if you're interacting with them again and again and again, it's your choice, no matter what. We think things are so immutable that we can't quit a job or move, sell our house, or leave our mothers. We think that things can't be changed, but that's not true. It's not true. If you're there purposefully, by choice. Okay? All right. I hope that helped whoever I said that to.
That would help a few people.
Yeah.
All right. That would be cool. Oh, boy. What time is it before I answer this one?
It is 9:12.
Let me take a sip of water.
Oh boy.
All right. How does life work? Is there a simple overview?
Oh boy. Oh my goodness.
Can we get coffee? Yes.
Well, I might just say that this just incentivized me to say that I think I have to get another book out there really as fast as humanly possible. I don't know what I do with my time, but book writing is not one of them these days. But I think it's time to, I have all these books going, but I have to actually write them. This would be one of them. That's how simple it is. That's it in a nutshell. All right. So should I give you a release date for the book that I haven't even written or titled? All right.
It's really pretty simple. It's love versus fear.
Huh? Yeah.
Love versus fear.
Well, it's not even love versus fear, because fear is the absence of love. So even that's not a complete equation. But of course, you know, I'm making a joke here. It is very simple that the purpose of life is for us to move closer and closer to living to the vibration of love. And the vibration of love is who we are. The qualities of the way we share our interactions on earth, separating first through language. That's what causes senses of not being enough, not having enough, not being able to create enough or be enough or anything. That sense of separation is what brings our vibration down below the vibration of love. So our journey as a soul and a body, as individuals, is to return and as greatly as we can to living in that vibration of love. And as a planet, our journey is to collectively return to the vibration of love. And it happens in big ways and it happens in little ways. I'm hoping, I'm allowed to have hope. I'm hoping that our next big way is evolutionary, and that's how it feels to me rather than revolutionary, because the revolutions that we've had on this planet have not been successful in turning us to a planet that's vibrating in the vibration of love, right? It's interesting how revolution always leaves an energetic imprint. So even if you think you got everyone on board and we signed the peace treaties, I don't even call them peace treaties anymore, but once we've signed the treaties, it doesn't eradicate the vibration of the energy that we experience in being evil to one another, does it? No, it doesn't. Okay? So it's important that we become evolutionary, because it is only with our actions and our thoughts and our intentions to be in the vibration of soulfulness that we can actually make a difference on the planet, one that has a potential to be sustained forever. If you actually look at some of the things that happen and have been happening rapidly, you can see how all of this makes sense. All the little pieces are out there, right? Just in the last 20 years, we've seen an enormous rise in autism. And what that is, it's a way for us to get back to communicating on an intuitive level, which is sharing consciousness. So for a child with autism or an adult with autism to have the most successful outcome, successful meaning their best harmony and happiness, we have to approach that that person's development with intuition, not with language. So you could see how that's just one piece of the puzzle that's narrating what it is we're talking about here tonight. You know, another piece of the puzzle is, you know, how many years have humans been on the planet? Anyone?
Humans?
Yeah. Thousands? All right, let's say 10,000 just for argument's sake, right? Let's say 10,000. Someone's going to be typing right in there, oh, you ignorant fool. How little you know. Okay, so let's say 10,000 for argument's sake. In 10,000 years, it took us 10,000 years to have an open conversation about gender identification and sexuality, right? Might not be a harmonious conversation all the time, but at least we're having an open conversation, right? A truly opening conversation in a revolutionary way. In a whatever, I didn't get that right. In a evolutionary way, okay? And that's the beginning of us being able to say there's actually nothing left that a person could have about themselves. We've been through the skin color, we've been through the religion, we've been through the gender, we've been through the sexuality, now we're through the gender identification. Is there anything left? We've been through whether you're rich or you're poor. We've been through where you live. We've been through everything now on this planet. We're working toward emerging from the ignorance of every one of those things that we have judged. So this, I think, was the last one. Does anyone think of anything other than, is there anything left? Right?
Trauma.
Yeah, but I'm talking about how we identify ourselves toward prejudice. We're not prejudiced toward someone because they had a trauma. I'm talking about what are we using as means to separate and judge one another based on what they look like or who they're identifying themselves as, right? I think we've got to know them all.
Maybe disability. Maybe mental health. Maybe health.
Yeah. Oh, maybe healthfulness. Maybe healthfulness. Yeah, I think you might be right. Healthfulness within the body. Yes, that might be one. Yeah, but we're even getting there. Like even I saw, we're seeing increasingly models who have disabilities. I always find it a little patronizing when you see if there's only one person and they have them in a wheelchair. I always find that to be a little bit like, come on, you're now you're playing me
token.
here, right? Yeah. But the whole idea is that who we're seeing modeling, who we're seeing in places where they can be speakers or can be motivating or can be inspirational, and the things that we're sharing and the things that we're valuing, even in that area, we're making progress. We might even be making some progress in mental illness, but that might be the last unturned stone. Okay? Might be.
What about death?
However, mental illness will dissolve when we live in harmony. So that's kind of not even an expression of our identity. That's a consequence for the way that humankind lives. That's a big difference, right? But when you're born, if you are born in a male body and you feel and identify only with being female, that has nothing to do with how we live, how humanity lives. That has to do with your own personal representation of how you feel about yourself, right? So I think even mental illness isn't one of them. I've just concluded that live here in front of you. So I think we might have covered acceptance of most topics of how people have seen each other as being separate, things that will not necessarily dissolve when we are all living harmoniously. Okay?
The question came to me really quickly.
Yeah.
With regard to that is, I'm under the impression, I could be wrong, but I'm under the impression that there was a time that we did live this way. Like back in Memoria, during that specific time where everything was harmonious.
Yeah.
And there was not greed and it was just a beautiful world.
Right. That's exactly what I was talking about. I was talking about how we lived with shared consciousness, meaning that we were connecting with our thought energy, with the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, and the planet itself, and each other. That's why there was no greed, there was no negativity, there was no neglect, yes. So language is what altered that path.
So my next question becomes then, with the year 2020 happening, is that where we're headed? Because we could have been headed with the destruction of Earth.
Yeah.
We could have destroyed ourselves.
But
instead, it appears to me that what's happening is that the greater universe has decided that's not what we want to do.
Right.
And so, like with Mother Earth and Mother Gaia and Universal Light and Love, they're taking the wheel because we've screwed it all up. But they've decided.
What I have a sense of is that I don't necessarily say, I still talk in terms of our guides, your guides, the universe, and things like that. And I do give it a role of being a decider, like the universe gives you an opportunity. But it's actually not. That's not a true way to state it. I do that for efficiency because no one really decides anything. It's just a matter of reflection. It's what we're reflecting, what we're actually experiencing. And that reflection is reflected outside of us. And then we get to get the echo back of the reflection, and we get to decide collectively and individually how we want to respond to the echo of our reflection. Okay. Now, non-physical sources of love and guidance are here in that equation, supporting us and motivating us and doing everything that they can to help us have our aha moments and our experiences of clarity, of course. But there's no one that's deciding anything for us. We are creating something. And one of the things that we will experience in Grenada at the kickoff of 2020 is a little bit more of details that our guides will give us about what does this actually look like specifically. How can we support this change? How can we encourage this change? How can we help others encourage this change? And it's not a matter of, rallying together and creating some kind of massive army for good or anything like that. It's a matter of understanding the principles of the energy and how we can be best suited to let the ripples of that positive possibility get out there more quickly. But this is going to happen with us in Grenada, and it's going to be happening in pockets all over the planet because we're all tapping into the same river of universal wisdom. It's happening all over the globe. This will be our expression of how we align with it and identify it, and also get meaningful, purposeful steps of where we can go with it individually and collectively after that trip. But the same experience is happening all over. There'll be an explosion of these kinds of celebrations and festivals and support for one another. And what it's a game changer. 2020 is a game changer. The one thing that I was told back in 2012, that's 8 years ago almost, but one of the things that I was told is that, and it makes sense now seeing how far we've come since 2012, but we will have people, the vibrational energy on the planet that's living above the line, the vibrational energy of people living above the line will equal the vibrational energy of those living below the line for the first time in recorded history. And up until now, it's always been the vibrational energy below the line was eclipsed the vibrational energy above the line. Follow? And that becomes a game changer. So we will become equal. 2020 is clear vision, right? There's a balance in that. So we will become equal, the vibrational energy above the line and below the line. And then, because we're in a period of accelerated enlightenment, then the energy above the line will begin to tip the scale toward all being above the line. And when that happens, it's basically like there's nowhere to hide. There's going to be fewer and fewer pockets of darkness. There's going to be fewer places where you can live in isolation or greed or disease or war or abuse or neglect or anything like that. I don't know how long it will take to go from the moment of equivalency of the energies to becoming noticeably different, that the vibration above the line is eclipsing that below the line. I don't know what the timeline is. The only thing that I can tell you is that it's going to happen, and it is unstoppable. One of the reasons I've taken this year as a bridge year so pronouncedly is because I don't want you to be one of those people down here, because it's not going to be fun. Okay? I don't know when different people will tumble in there, but they will tumble in it. And I don't want anyone in this room to be a tumbler. Okay? Unless you're an acrobat and you make your living off of it, then please don't tumble away. Yeah. Stay with me. Now, here's a very, very important caveat on that, is that it's not numbers of people. And that's why this takes a different way of approaching the vibrational energy. It's not numbers of people. It's vibrational energy. So if you're living in fear and hate, fear or hate, you have a tiny vibrational energy, right? So you're still one person, but you have a very small vibrational energy. When you expand into the vibration of love, your vibrational energy increases. So a person living at this vibration might eclipse lots of little people that are living in fear and in hate. And then there's a whole spectrum in between. So one high vibe can eclipse a lot of fear and hate. Follow me? The reason it's so important to recognize the difference here is that it's not numbers of people. That means that what we do at the polls doesn't have as great of an influence as we would like it to have. Okay? It's one person per vote at a poll, right? So we always have to remember that, which is why we have to, we want to, not have to, but we may want to use strategies that are quite different than the traditional way to create a revolution. You know, could we be revolutionary at the polls? Can we be revolutionary with overthrowing governments or with guns? Those things don't work. And this time it won't work because it's one person per vote at the poll. So our strategies have to come outside of our normal version of how do we affect change. it's going to happen anyway. My view is one of the things that Grenada will be kicking off is just to have us do it more purposefully so we can accelerate even the acceleration of enlightenment. Okay? Okay. Yeah, it's definitely going to happen anyway. I would love to sit one day and I don't see that whole rocking chair thing going on for me, but I'd like to sit one day and just kind of look out and say, look how far we've come. Like it's mind-blowing how far we've come. Mind-blowing. Like we had hints of it in 2012. We had hints of it in the year 2000. We had hints of it in the 1960s. We had hints of it all along the way, right? But I just want to sit there and look out and say, even I couldn't imagine that we could get all this done, right? And in the scheme of things, how fast it happened. In the scheme of things, how fast it happened. Thank you. To life. All right, thanks, guys. You were all really amazing helping me out tonight with this alternate plan that we had here. So I really appreciate your patience. It felt intimate. It felt very close to be like this outside of our normal room and our normal space. So thank you. And I look forward. Oh, you know what I do want to announce, just so I don't forget. The month of December, we usually have a food share for the holidays. Does anybody know the date of December's meeting?
I think it's the 11th. I think it's
really?
on the channel.
It's the 12/11? Okay, I'm going to... Yeah, okay. December 11th.
Well,
I just booted it up in my head, and actually, I think you're right. Yes. Okay. Okay, all right, the 11th. All right, December 11th. One of the things that we like to do is we do a food share. I'll find out who would like to be the point of contact that says, no, we have way too much sushi, darling, but how about a little champagne? Oops, we can't have champagne. We're not allowed alcohol here. But anyway, I'll have someone who's going to volunteer to be the person to say what you'd like to bring. But we will have a food share. But one of the things I like to do in December, too, is to support one another. If there's anything that you would like to show us that represents something that you love or something that you sell or something that you do, commerce-wise, I'll put tables out and you can sell your stuff. Please bring money. And do your holiday shopping on December 11th when we come back, okay? And I'll put it out there so everybody knows. But let's support one another in the material world and in every other way. All right. So thank you for being here, and once again, thanks for being so flexible.